Hello, and welcome to TableTalk Friday, your weekly dose of D&D hosted by three boys in a bedroom. If you like their style, you can follow them on Instagram, YouTube, and other social media platforms. And now, back to the boys.
I got really jealous today because at work there were so many people. It was storming outside, so everyone's power was going out. Like we're all working remotely, right? So they, we'll call him work guy Eric. His power went out. Zach's friend from work, Eric, his power went out, and then Zach's boss from work, Eric, also had her power go out. And so I was just sitting here waiting, like, when's my break? When do I get to take a break because my power went out? I wanna go sit on the porch or something and just look at the rain, but nope.
So we had like a trickle of like people coming into the gym all day, and at one point the power literally like flickers off for a second and back on, and the internet goes out, and I was like, hell yes. Anybody comes in, we can't check them in. So like we have to wait a couple of minutes. I get a little break right now. No, not a single person walked in that door until the internet came back on. Like the internet comes back on, people start filtering in again. And I'm like, what? Did the world stop when the power went out? That's not fair. I don't know.
Just a group of people outside sitting on their phones. No,
they
no
saw
Wi-Fi. Can't go in.
Well, the thing is that it was like a flicker of the lights, and the Wi-Fi basically like reset. So Bailey had to go upstairs. I mean, Ninja Eric, friend female, went upstairs and changed out or turned off the internet, turned it back on, and it was back on again. But literally, not a single person walked in the door. Like the phone rang a few times, and I had to answer it. But like, I wanted to know that someone was waiting on the internet to be back up, and they were waiting there. No one was waiting.
I feel like no matter where you are, it's always fun when the power goes out, right? Because if you're home and you're doing nothing, you can hang out, play some cards. You can read a book, play some board games with your boys.
Do you remember that time?
Yeah, well, we've done it a couple times.
Yeah, whenever we were at our old apartment, and literally,
Eric.
Yeah, apartment Eric, and the power goes out. I'm in the middle of cooking eggs, and the power goes out, and I can't finish my eggs. Now they're just sitting here in a pan, half cooked. I can't eat them; they're half cooked, and so
That's quitter talk.
yeah, and so my eggs are sitting in the pan. Taylor comes out and is like, "Oh, the power went out," and I was like, Yeah, the power did go out. Let's call Drew. We call Drew. He's like a couple minutes away. Drew comes home, and we're all like, well, what do we do? This is like the first month and a half we've all been living together. And we're just like, well, what do we do with all this time? And I was like, well, I guess we're going to have to break out the games. And we all sat down for the night, put some candles on around the table, and we just got to play board games all night. And it was great. When the power came back on, I was a little disappointed.
See, that's the thing, though. You anticipate the power going out because it's going to be fun, and as soon as the power goes back on, it's like your life is back to normal.
Right?
It's like when you finish a movie,
that.
like a really good movie, you're really immersed. You feel like you are the characters. You're really, really feeling the vibe, the setting, and all of a sudden the movie ends. It's like, well, now I'm sitting on my couch.
Right, now I'm just me again.
What am I supposed to do?
Now
I'm going to work tomorrow.
Now I'm not Percy Jackson.
Exactly. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. When the power goes out, that's exactly what I feel like is Percy Jackson.
Well, the thing is, when the power goes out, I can't play video games and try to beat Elden Ring, so that means I read a book or something, I sit down and I go, oh, you know what? I'm actually going to read that book that I bought, 3 years ago and has been sitting on my shelf. And I sit down, I get to chapter 2, power comes back on, Elden Ring. Never pick the book up again.
Oh. No, if the power goes out and it's dark, like I'm not going to get a candle and try and read a book. That's how you get eye strain, so I've heard. I don't think that's actually true.
Well, I wear blue light glasses, which I happen to be wearing right now, so my eyes are much less strained.
but in either case, I feel like that's just a great time to zen out, be alone with your thoughts.
What, you want to meditate when the power goes out?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a little scary to be meditating. Especially with all the candles going on. If someone looks in the window, they might get a wrong vibe,
See, I feel like
I live on the third floor, so it doesn't matter anyway.
I feel like one of the points of meditation is kind of like when you're fasting, you have the option. You could just do it, but you're going without it for a little while. if the power forces you to meditate, am I really getting everything I should get out of meditation?
Well, I just think it's really cool because, like,
It is cool.
yeah, it's uncharacteristically quiet, right? But if anything does move, you hear absolutely everything.
Not if you have tinnitus, like me.
Well, I guess you're disabled.
I'm
So you just
I'm
can't-
never alone with my thoughts. There is always the ringing.
Yeah. I do hear a ring every once in a while. I hope it doesn't happen all the time because that'd be awful.
Yeah, I mean, you get used to it.
Yeah.
I worked remote for like a year and a half, and I don't think once ever the power went out while I was working.
Doesn't that suck?
It does. I was really hoping for a break at some point, but I never got that. I feel like that's one of the biggest perks of working from home is those spontaneous breaks you get.
Well,
Well, that happens at the office too, though.
yeah.
Yeah, but it depends on where you work.
Well, I remember the one time, you probably remember, the one time you were working at home. I had gone to work that day, and I just come back home at like 2 p.m., and you're like, Seth, why are you home so early? Aren't you supposed to be at the office? And I was like, oh, no, the power went out at the office. Someone hit a lamppost, and they sent us home. And it was the best. I just showed back up home, and they were like, hey, you guys can wait. The power should be back on around 3. You guys can stay 3 to 5 then. Go ahead and take a break. Come back at 3, or like stick around till 3. Come back at 3 if you want. And, you can continue to get paid, or you can just leave right now. And I was like, I'm going to go home right now. It's like 1 p.m. Someone hit a light post outside. It's not going to be back on for 2 hours. Yeah, I'm going to go home. And so I look at my boss. I go, hey, me and Jamie Eric are out. And so me and Jamie left for the day.
Do you remember back in college when I think we were in class, or it was like midday, maybe we were at lunch or something, and that bread truck hit the pole out front and all the lights went out? That was crazy.
That was funny.
There were a bunch of people that claimed they were out front and they just watched this bread truck go off the road and slam into this pole. It was crazy.
I don't
so
remember
funny.
this at all.
No?
No, I must have been asleep or meditating.
See, I get it confused because when I think of the event, it makes me think of that scene from Zombieland where they found the snowball truck and the snowballs were all over the road. So I think, oh yeah, the Tasty Cake truck hit that pole back in college. No, it didn't. That was a good movie, though. I enjoyed Zombieland.
Well, I think that's a good time for us to get into our topic for the day, because welcome to Table Talk Friday. This week, our subject is giants. Everything we know about giants. Now, as you guys know, in our past, we have been players in Storm King's Thunder, which is a giant-centric campaign. By the way, my name is Seth Pittman. I'm joined by Zach Carvon and Andrew Romano. How are you boys doing today?
Well, I'm doing diddly great. Just real excited to be talking about some giants with you today.
I love giants. Probably my favorite creature.
Can't say I'm diddly great, but I'm feeling pretty solid. Had a good quality day at work. I only melted a little bit in the sun, so I'm mostly solid at this point.
Sweet. Okay, so yeah, we're going to jump into talking about giants, probably just starting from the very baseline, giant lore, what we know about giants as of right now, and what we've experienced with them in games thus far. Who wants to start?
You can't open the floor like that when you were the DM
That's
for our
true.
Storm King's Thunder campaign. So Seth, why don't you tell us, just some of your basic knowledge about giants in D&D and what you know about the lore?
There are 5 different types of giants: hill giants, stone giants, frost giants, fire giants, and storm giants. Oh no, cloud giants and storm giants. I'm bad. 6 types of giants.
Seth knows all of them.
Right? Really messed it up. And they are allotted in what is called the ordning. Now, this is the hierarchy of giant power based on how strong your certain types of giants are. A lot of it is just based around height and muscle. How much power you can output. Hill giants being at the bottom and storm giants being at the top. The ordning lies in the order I mentioned before: hill, stone, frost, fire, cloud, storm. Sitting at the very top of the storm giant hierarchy, we have the storm giant, like actual royalty, and they are basically like the rulers of all giants, but all giants don't really abide by what they say. They just kind of exist underneath them. And at the very top, high above all of them, is their god,
Anam the Allfather.
Yeah, Anam the Allfather. Jeez, it's been a long time since I ran Storm King's Thunder. yeah, the premise of Storm King's Thunder is basically this ordning has been broken and the players are tasked with reforming it, which is what you guys ended up doing a couple of years ago. Very cool, very fun. And overall, Giants are just the coolest thing in the game. But they're not only just like big hit point sacks as well as damage dealing sacks, but at the same time, they also have, one, a lot of cool lore behind each one of them. They lie all over the Sword Coast. Two, they are the creatures that existed far before humans, which is very interesting when you think that all of this Forgotten Realms civilization is built on top of what the giants and dragons built before. They are the natural enemies to dragons, given their stature and their amount of power they can output. And as we know, based on our current the current setting, the current lore, dragons did come out on top of the giants, whereas in the past, the two of them sort of existed equally, but dragons ended up coming out on top. Giants kind of became more recluse, as well as humanity was born and ended up conquering both.
Yeah. So when we talk about lore in D&D, our knowledge base is mostly centered around the Forgotten Realms.
Correct.
So we'll be doing a lot of speaking about what is typically accepted in current 5th edition Forgotten Realms lore. But what's really interesting about giants is, I think from a setting standpoint, there are a couple things that do seem to be constant, specifically like the idea that giants came from before, right?
Right.
So obviously giants can't be plentiful and, just doing great right now. Otherwise, everywhere you look, there's going to be a huge giant civilization. And if there's not something that exists to keep the giants in check, like the dragons, then why haven't they conquered everything? They're massive. They're industrious. There are, brands of giants that are very intelligent. Why not? Unless there's, some force keeping them back. So
both dragons and humanity now are both keeping those giants in check, which is very cool to think about how, fire giants are your typical, just like dwarves, just your smiths, your very strong, powerful creatures who are able to create some of the strongest weapons and armor out there, and yet they're still being kept in check by Timmy the Barbarian.
Yeah, and so there is a part of me that thinks, okay, yes, humanity, right, their advantages, they multiply, they expand, and they're just everywhere, right? So they're tough to deal with. I still find it hard to believe that giants struggle with that as a threat.
Yeah, I feel that.
Or even, and this is true for a lot of fantasy races as well, I suppose, but if you think about elves, right, they've got every advantage. They live 500 years. They're masters of the bow and stealth and magic and all this other stuff. Why are they not the dominant species? Oh, well, they don't like having sex. There's just not that many elves because they choose not to multiply like humans.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that's fine.
Low testosterone, it sucks.
Yeah. But, putting that aside, the giants, just in and of themselves, I think they're best used in your campaign sparingly, right? So I think one of the things that we ran into in Storm King's Thunder was sort of giant fatigue, where, wow, we've dealt with a lot of giants. I can't wait to do something else, right?
Right.
Because that's not to say that giants aren't, like you said, one of the most awesome monsters in D&D, but just written on the page, they don't give you that much as a DM to work with in terms of, just the monster stat block, right? Every giant has, over 100 hit points, a big attack, and a rock they can throw. And then, some giants will have like a variation, like cloud giants can cast some spells, storm giants can throw lightning, but those main 3 elements you're going to find with every giant. So what makes giants cool is the idea that they're not everywhere, right? They existed as a part of this ancient race. Maybe you find like the bones of an ancient giant or, an ancient giant civilization that's been abandoned. Now that's some cool shit because it feels like you're uncovering something that, it's uncommon, right? You stumble upon the giant, lair, or you find like a wandering frost giant everlasting one or whatever the case may be. that's a cool, memorable encounter because they're, these mythical, mystical creatures. And so I think as a DM, you can use giants in, the way where they're just a big sack of hit points. I think they work very well for that purpose too. Say throw a hill giant in with, an orc band or something. That's a perfect boss for that encounter. But if you think about, well, how am I going to escalate this giant? It's really in the DM's hands to say, all right, what are their tactics? What's their society like? What's going to make this giant encounter different than all the other giant encounters you've had? Maybe, you run into a giant and they're not hostile at all, which, is sort of where stone giants or cloud giants can come in because they're more artistic. They're more reasonable, I suppose.
I think so. While I think they're really cool mythically, they're definitely great bosses. They're good, ancient creatures to look into the lore of. But I would absolutely love to see more of them. I'd like to see a setting where giants are more, I'm not going to say like integrated per se, but are more abundant. When I think of dragons per se, right? Dragons obviously are very isolated. It probably takes them a long time to breed because they have to meet other dragons. They have to venture out, which they don't like doing. So it makes sense that they're very rare, they're mythical, and they're hard to find.
Wait, did you even read Fizzbands?
I read
Dragons can reproduce by having a bigger horde.
That's an option. That's an option set. Option.
I'm just saying, it's there.
Could be.
But as far as the giants go, we were talking about how old they were, right? I've never played in a one-off or a campaign where we ran into one giant unless they were very specialized, like a very specific cloud giant lives in a giant fortress.
You did run into the everlasting one in Storm Kings, which you mollywopped.
But their whole thing is that they're wandering.
Same for the Stone Giant Dreamwalkers and the Storm Giant Quintessence. Those are solo giants.
Yeah, but if you think of any other encounter with a giant, you're running into a group of hill giants. You're trying to eat some adventurers in the hills, or you stumble into a cave of stone giants that have been sleeping for 20 years and wake up as soon as you walk in. The bats fly around the room, or even fire giants. You think a large forge where they're all working together to craft one massive legendary weapon. You don't run into one or two giants. So in the same sense, where are they? I'd like to run into more civilizations, more groups.
What I like for that, especially in like a homebrew setting, or I guess you could use it in your own like version of the Forgotten Realms, is we as people have agreed to live over here. We don't agree with the giants. They don't agree with us, and we take up different amounts of space. The giants live over there, across that ocean. They don't come over here. We don't go over there. I like that as an idea.
Yeah, and so in our current setting, like a post Storm King's Thunder world, we have seen that sort of like, well, the giants are rebuilding. The ordning has been reestablished, and everything's sort of coming together. Where small folk and giants are, not maybe all giants, right? There are some still hostile to small people's way of life, but there's that communication between storm giants and small folk and cloud giants and the small folk.
Yeah, and I wonder how, like, I haven't really put too much thought into it, of how that actually affects the world, centuries from now. Where those creatures go, how exactly they live out their lives, and how being at peace with giants and humanity would really affect the world as a whole now that they're agreeing on things.
Lots of half giants.
Well, storm giants and whatnot can just live in the ocean, They can do that. Right now, frost giants, fire giants, hill giants, they all have their own places, but it's like, okay, nothing's really changed for them. So I think it would be cool to, work that into the campaign in the future. Like, okay, how does this continue forward? Because you guys in our last campaign ended up talking to a lot of giants, making peace with different groups of them, and that could allow for, them to actually build a society in the future, which would be really cool. I mean, for instance, bringing in different types of characters who were giants as NPCs and seeing their motivations, how you guys met one specific character. I'm not going to spoil anything that I possibly can for Storm Kings, because I do think you should play through it. One specific character, their whole motivation was, we are looking for artifacts from long past, like ancient, draconic, and giant artifacts, so that we can become more powerful in our own right, and we can reestablish what us as these type of giants mean. And that's just a cool motivation. That's like a not evil-centric motivation. When you guys found that out, you were like, oh, well, maybe we should talk instead. And it ended up working out. Like, we know you did some horrible things, but also you had motivation here, and it wasn't particularly evil. So I think being able to deal with that, especially with those giants that are able to be reasoned with and talked to, is really fun. Especially once you've established that, a storm giant isn't just something that flies out of the water and starts attacking you. It's actually just a really, really big water-breathing person.
Well, yeah, and storm giants are a good example of like a typically coded, more on the good spectrum.
Yes.
And it's interesting that, there's baked in the monster manual, alignment-wise, even though that may change in the future with future printings. We'll see how that goes. But that there's, this built-in diversity of cultures, right? So fire giants ultimately do, take pride in, conquest and subjugation, which is why they're so good at creating, military armaments, is because they're always trying to build themselves up and, take that angle of it. Whereas storm giants are naturally gifted and very powerful, so they don't necessarily, they keep the other giants in check, but they're free to pursue other things like magic and, they seclude themselves in the ocean so that they can work on themselves and bolstering their own society, right? Whereas like stone giants, they're really big on runecraft and just art. Interesting stuff.
And I like one of the things I really like. My favorite are probably frost giants, because frost giants are very much just like barbarians. Like the reason they don't expand so much is because they're always fighting each other for who is the strongest frost giant. Like their whole society is based on the strongest one of us is in charge, so we're fighting all the time to be in charge. That's cool. They're always training and fighting, and they're not going out and fighting a ton of people per se. A lot of them are living in one space, fighting each other to be the next person in charge. Until we get to certain events where they do actually try to push themselves out into the Forgotten Realms, which is cool. I'm a huge fan of frost giants. I think they're fun, and they're that perfect 6 to 10 level enemy, so that perfect mid-range enemy for characters to go after. And if you do like a 1 to 5, a perfect second character arc is for frost giants to come in sometime in that like 6 to 10 range, maybe even like do something else and go there 8 to 10 and have a character arc or a story arc where frost giants are coming in like and attacking the realm. You can do that with any of the giants. I'm just saying I like frost giants particularly because of their culture.
Well, yeah, and if there's a awesome way to make your players shit their pants, it's throwing 3 of them at them when they're level 5.
Yes, the book said so.
But that's a good topic. I don't want to say mine because I'm bringing it up. So, Drew, do you have a favorite giant of the giants that we've listed here?
So I'm gonna agree with Seth. I actually really, really like frost giants. I like frost giants though, not only because they're primitive, but I think there's a lot of thematic opportunity for them. So when I think of frost giants, I think of a group of frost giants living in the tundra, right? They have these big old igloo ice houses that they've built. And of course, they're not alone because these people have been living in the wilderness forever. They're that primal, they don't advance technology type of giant, right? So instead, they have winter wolves that run around with them. And they have saber-teeth dogs and cats and like crazy
Saber-toothed tigers.
Yeah, tigers, but like different kinds. I like the mystery with them because they're not something you see all the time. They're out in the wilderness doing their own thing, With a storm giant, you kind of know. You know what a storm giant's doing. He's casting lightning across the sky, and there's symbolism to it. With the frost giants, you never see them. You never know they're there until you're mid-combat with them, or their pets are attacking you, right? On top of that, I'm actually going to go with my least favorite giant because I have one very strongly. Strangely enough, the strongest ones, storm giants, are my least favorite giant.
Blasphemy! Because
I know.
For me, go ahead and explain why you hate storm giants so much. But just so you know, as a preface for this, them's my favorite.
So I'll tread lightly, Zach. So they're very cool. I love the lightning theming. I think we could always use some more of that. I like the idea that in my brain, when I think of a storm giant, there are these mountaintop Zeus-like legendary creatures, right? They're the reason that lightning lights up the sky. They're the reason that there's storms in the sea. Strangely enough, I don't think of water when I think of storm giants, and it throws me off. We've done a campaign with storm giants involved, and there's water stuff going on. You're in the ocean in certain parts, and you get to do that kind of exploration. I don't think of giants as things that swim around. Like, to me, being in a boat and there's a giant swimming under it, that's weird. How is he swimming around? He's so big, you know? But
You're right. Nothing big can go
no,
underwater.
it's possible. It's possible. It just seems
How do you feel
odd.
about krakens, Drew?
Krakens are
Whales,
very cool.
whales?
Whales, but they're designed for water. These are just giant
I get it.
people. Why are they swimming around? What are they doing? They should be. I think of them being on the mountaintops, cracking lightning bolts down.
You
which
know,
think
I
is
thought you
very
were going to
cool.
have better reasoning for
No,
why you
that's
don't
it.
like storm giants,
They
but I
confuse
don't
me.
like your reasoning because I was like, okay, yeah, I can see where it's turned to the trade. I thought, wait, what? Because, yeah, I don't agree with you on that, but I can see it a little bit.
Well, so now, everyone, let me just explain to you why storm giants are, in fact, the coolest giant. So,
Please
So, I mean, if you think about just the image of a storm giant, you hit the nail right on the head with Zeus, right? They're just, first of all, the largest of the giants by a good margin. They also more or less go up in height, except for fire giants and cloud giants.
Correct.
They sort of stay below. But storm giants, they're huge, right? And so you think about storm giants and throwing lightning bolts and swimming underwater. Can you imagine, Drew? Just picture this for a moment. Calm seas. Everything's going great. But on board, there's a fugitive. Someone who has angered the storm giant king. And within seconds, dark clouds surround the ship. There's thunder and lightning, rumbling that sounds off in the distance at first, and then immediately, ba-boom! Lightning strikes right next to the boat, and then from underneath, no one can see, not even the guy in the crow's nest, but the camera pans up, and you see the massive face of this giant, his face bigger than the ship itself, and he reaches up with one hand and crunches that ship apart to get rid of that fugitive. That is badass. Like just imagine, and to be fair, I'm a big fan of Greek mythology. Poseidon, under the sea, his whole kingdom. Like Poseidon, storm giant. Zeus, storm giant. A lot of the Greek pantheon could be, equated to this level of, prestige. Or even if you think about, like, the Titans, the things that came before the gods. These are, maybe Empyreans or the things of storm giant stature. I love the other giants, but if I want a giant, I want it to be imposing. Like, thank God the storm giants are good, right? Because otherwise we'd all be fucked.
Yeah.
That thing's so huge. His finger is bigger than me.
Isn't it like 30 feet tall or something like that?
They're usually, I think, 28 to 30 feet tall-ish. Yeah.
That's insanely big. I don't know. So I agree with you. I think they are very cool. They are very menacing. By far, probably the most intimidating giant. I find their theming confusing with the water. I don't know what it is. I think every other giant has a very specific niche that they fill, and the water thing throws me off. I don't know what it is. It totally does.
Well, so here's my thought. My weakest giant of the ones we've established. It's a toss-up between stone giants and hill giants, and my reasoning why is they both sort of occupy not the same space, right? Because hill giants are definitely like the big, dumb, stupid oaf. They, will pick fights for no reason or because they're hungry, Like they'll walk around as like a bully of small folk, right? But if that's the case, where do I fit in a stone giant, which is of a similar CR? They don't do anything different in combat than a hill giant. The only difference is like their culture, right? So you have to dig into the lore to really, if you're gonna feature hill giants and stone giants, good luck, because you really have to make them very distinct for your players not to say, oh, it's like a hill giant again, right?
Here's how I feel about it. Now, I will say stone giants are my least favorite of the bunch, but I love all giants. And what I do like about stone giants is the fact that they seem to me like the silent geniuses, you know? Like they're quiet, but everything they're doing underground seems like it has some meaning, even though it might not actually have any. They just seem quiet, reserved, and, you know, one thing I do like about stone giants as well is, you know, they're not really on the surface a lot. There's a reason you don't see a lot of stone giants. They don't come above ground because they are comfortable underground. It's a nicer spot for them to be around rock. Hill giants, I do like better than stone giants, and I might even like them better than like cloud giants, honestly, because when we played, they have such fond spaces in my memory because we've been around a lot of hill giants. There's been in a campaign all about giants, the first 5 levels, you can't fight much more than a hill giant. So you guys are going, traveling the realm, you run into a good bit of hill giants, and they're so much fun. Like, I'm going to spoil one thing really quick, because the fact that the hill giants' whole MO for the campaign is we have to get more food to feed the head hill giant is so derpy and hilarious to me. Now, you can solve the campaign. I recommend any DMs to change this up a little bit when they go into running it, because I ended up changing it and adding the fact in that, like, a certain character has a headband of intellect. They're a lot smarter than you think. And they, the whole thing is just feed. It's funny because you're going to get bigger. You'll get taller. You'll get stronger. That's not what happens when you eat a lot of food, guys. I don't know if you know that, but that's what the hill giants think. They think that they're going to become the best by being the biggest. And how do you get bigger? You eat more. It's so funny. It's so good. That's all they want. And so, yeah. I'm a big fan of hill giants because you can mess with them like that. You can have them doing completely illogical things. And why can they do it? Because they're big and strong. And also their variants in Volos and stuff and in the Monsters of the Multiverse are very fun because they're just random gigantic oafs. You literally roll a die and that's what they do that turn. I love it. It's so random.
Yeah, they can't. They're like in a feeding frenzy, right? Like,
yeah, they're called Mouths of Gorlantor. They're hill giants that have been starved, so all they want is to. They're basically like rabid, feral. They want to eat because they're so hungry, and so literally whatever they do on their turn, you roll the dice, and one of the things is, hey, they don't do anything. They're so hungry, they can't even think straight. They're just going to stand there. Another thing is, oh yeah, they're going to go to the nearest creature within their movement speed and make 3 attacks. Like, they're going to do the 3 strongest punches they could possibly do on this thing to try and kill it, squash it, and then eat it.
There's no way that would ever kill any of your players. So
yeah, that was our first character death in our campaign, was someone died to one of those.
Yeah, it wasn't someone. We'll go ahead and call him out here. It was Drew. Drew died and made me waste my 300 gold.
He was I remember
on
Drew
Revivify.
making that decision and standing in the open in front of this thing, like, it won't be able to kill me in one turn. He goes out in the open, shoots at the boss, and then gets literally splatted on the ground by the giant.
Yeah,
But-
he was a new player.
But
He
listen
actually
though,
was.
it was a good choice, right? I'm going to defend my choice here because our wizard was standing right there. Our wizard
You
was standing
could
right
have
there.
done it from cover, though.
Sure, it's possible, but the giant was berserk. He was going to hit somebody, right? So my thinking was, well, do I want him to hit our little wizard buddy that has no hit points and will surely die?
Your wizard deserved
Or
to die the whole
he
campaign.
did. He absolutely did. But
And he
that's not
never
the
did.
point. That's not the point. My rogue was a very heroic character, and he wanted to keep everyone safe. So I'm thinking, I've what is it called? The not cunning action.
Uncanny dodge.
Uncanny dodge. I'm going to half one of the attacks, and surely he's only going to hit me twice because most giants only swing twice. No, he swung 3 times.
Now, yeah, they don't always swing 3 times. I just happened to roll that one, and I was like, we're doing what the dice say. Boom, 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 dead.
So I defend my choice. It was all right. And, of course, Morwen saved me with his nice diamond that he was saving for me specifically.
Yeah, I will say I prefer the story, right? Eknon dies and has to be brought back to life. I feel like that's more dramatic. If Daleth died, I think everyone would look around the party and say, all right.
Do we waste the diamonds or not?
I've got 300 gold worth of diamonds. I have it on good authority that if we bring Daleth back in, like, next session, he's going to spend 500 gold on a dog.
So, yeah, all that to say, I like hill giants a lot. I have a lot of good memories of them, so a lot of it could be nostalgia, and we haven't seen many stone giants. We've run into them once or twice, but we haven't gotten to spend time with them because we haven't spent a lot of time underground. So, not really a whole lot of reason to go underground and fight the stone giants. The one time you did meet stone giants, you were underground for a reason. So
Yeah, and I will say, hill giants definitely have their place, and I have, nothing but fond memories about them in Storm King's Thunder. But when I think about, like, larger scale, right, hill giants sort of occupy the same space as a lot of the giant kin, which, Seth, I know you love the giants, but
yes,
let me talk about the giant kin for just a second. So if we zoom out in Forgotten Realms lore, right, there's Anam the Allfather, and he had his wife, the mother of all giants, who I don't remember her name. But in Greek mythology fashion, she got around and had some crossbreed babies that bred, new forms of giants, right? So we've got Fomorians, Firbolgs, Virbigs, and then
Goliaths.
of course, Goliath, which, it's not confirmed for Goliaths whether or not they're related to stone giants, but they must be, right? And then ogres, Onis, Ettins, yep. So there's all of these, giant related folk, Cyclopses, of course. They all, are very, they're just very similar to hill giants.
What's fun about those, though, is when you have the intelligent ones, more like your Onis and such, you can use those in conjunction with, say, hill giants. So hill giants make good, servants to the smarter giant kin, which is very fun for me. So, for instance, an Oni could be staying in a town and have knowledge of a certain tribe of hill giants that's nearby, and they could go over there as a giant kin, as a brother of sorts, manipulate them, get them to do what they want for their own purposes. Great 6th or 7th level story arc where your characters are meeting up with this barkeep, blah, 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 blah. He's just a fun guy. He's cool. He's really fun. Turns out he's an Oni who's been speaking to this tribe of hill giants that's attacking a neighboring village for food and or resources to give back to the Oni for him for whatever cause. So it's really cool how you can use hill giants in conjunction with these other giant creatures if you're running a campaign in that vein.
For sure. And just to talk about, we don't have to go through the details on all of them, but I just want to, get my thoughts out while I've got them.
Sure.
Firbolgs, just my favorite. And so I'm not a huge fan of their 5th edition artwork and how they're more like a blue fairy animal type character, but they are still giant, and I don't mind like the foresty vibe of them. But they're just very interesting in my mind. So in Volo's Guide to Monsters, they have like this whole they're a fringe society, of course, like most giants are. They like to keep to themselves. They're industrious and they keep to their clan, but they also do something, irregardless of what's going on with the ordning right now. Every Firbolg says, well, fuck that. We're going to be as great as we can be, no matter the size. So they've got, tricks up their sleeve. They're intelligent. They're powerful. And they'll, no matter, what the ordning says, Firbolgs always aspire for greatness, which is, it's cool. It's cool. And I like playing them as characters. There's also Virbigs, which is stupid. Their name is dumb. It sounds like very big. And they're like Firbolgs, but they're mean, I guess. Let's see. Fomorians came from the Feywild originally, and are mostly in the Feywild, but they're like dark, twisted. They're not descended from stone giants in any way, but they're exactly like stone giants, except they're evil. Let's see. Any others that are great? I mean, ogres are my favorite. Overall, I think, just because I really love that as a low-level monster.
Oh, yeah.
That still commands some, some power, right? You think of, oh, yeah. I mean, he's throwing shit all over the place. If an ogre is running at you, even at, like, 5th level, it might feel fun to, like, go toe-to-toe with him, but they're still going to outclass all but, like, the most optimized barbarian, right, in terms of strength. So they've still got that going for them.
So I know we just talked about a whole bunch of the giant kin. Cyclops. Have we ever run into one?
Yes, in the Feywild.
Because they're really
Remember,
cool.
you ran into some some Cyclopses riding rocks in the Feywild.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like
Cy-
SpongeBob, they were riding
Cyclopses
rocks.
are kind of just like the giants of the Feywild, sort of. I don't know a whole lot of lore on them, to be honest. Like, I don't know a whole lot about them in particular. And having been a big fan of the Percy Jackson series, glad we brought that up again. Cyclopses are a big deal in Percy Jackson, and I want to care about them more in D&D, but I don't know that much about their like Forgotten Realms lore.
Yeah, so as far as I know, and I was doing some research before this episode, there's not a lot about Cyclopses
That
in the
sucks.
Forgotten Realms, and I don't think they're actually technically classified as giantkin. I'm pretty sure they do count as like full giants, but they're exactly the same as hill giants, except they only have one eye, so they have their poor depth perception, which is cute.
That's funny.
And another reason why I dislike hill giants, I like Cyclopses more, because
Right.
they've got that thing about them, right?
Yeah, I see what you mean. I would like to get back on track with the actual like giants that are part of the ordning, though, because we haven't talked a whole lot about cloud giants in general. And cloud giants are very interesting to me because think of the cloud giants as your elven giants of the bunch. Now, they're not actually like, they don't look like elves. They're not anything like that. But cloud giants in general are just so interesting because, one, they can build facilities on top of clouds. Cool. They live in the sky. Perfect. We don't have to worry about space for these guys. They float around. So that's cool. But on top of that, they are in tune with magic. A lot of cloud giants, especially the more noble versions, think of them more as nobles. A lot of the more noble cloud giants want to take the throne of the storm giants. They're like, we are more powerful, we're smarter, we're better. Storm giants always outmuscle and outclass them, but cloud giants feel like we have the knowledge and we have the power to overtake that. They're kind of like the Slytherin to the Gryffindor, you know what I mean? In Harry Potter, it's like, okay, we're going to use cunning, we're going to use power, we're going to use knowledge, and which is really cool to me. Like, you guys know I vibe with those kinds of characters already, and I wish there was a little more cloud giant lore to go off of, but they're very interesting. I think they're super, super fun, especially with the storylines that you get to cover in Storm King's Thunder, which we got to briefly go over. It was a big part of the campaign, but man, there's just so much to take into account when it comes to cloud giants.
Well, yeah, and so when I think about cloud giants, immediately my mind goes, it's Jack and the Beanstalk.
Oh yeah,
It's a giant on a cloud, and honestly, I think that's all that I want out of like a cloud giant encounter. And we haven't done this yet, but I'm holding it in my back pocket for a rainy day. I know you did that one fairy tale one-off, not the anime, but like you know, styled like a classic fairy tale. I think that would be a great one-off. Like, you know, a bunch of third level characters. Here's a cloud giant. You fucking deal with it.
yeah.
So as far as cloud giants go, I could be wrong. Do they have the least amount of hit points compared to all the other giants?
No, I don't think so.
Because I always think of them as kind of frail for a giant, which throws me off a little bit.
No, cloud giants are strong.
I think they're comparable to like a hill giant or a stone giant, but what they lack in hit points, they make up for in. I mean, they do more damage and they have spells, which really elevates them versus like a hill giant that doesn't.
I like the idea of like a giant caster. We didn't really run into a whole lot of giant casting in our campaign, but I'd like to see more of it. I'd like to see different kinds of giant casters to see how they roleplay. Because I really want to see more.
Yeah,
of the
you
cloud giants. I
can't.
don't
You
think I've
can't
gotten
have
enough
too
of it.
many giants that are powerful wizards, or else the fact that
you're
humans
right,
use
you're right.
magic makes no sense of taking them down. But yeah, I mean, you did have friends who were giant casters, which was fun, and you ran into like one or two encounters against them. It's a little bit tough because there's not a whole lot of spells that a giant's attack won't be better than anyways. Like having you guys make a save with your massive modifiers and make it versus like, oh, well, the giant can just have a plus 13 to hit and hit them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times when you're playing the characters with those massive modifiers, it's like, well, I guess my dragon could cast, a lightning bolt or a fireball, or it can go up and bite and claw twice and kill someone.
In theory.
I think I'd like to just see more of them. Realistically, they're not used as much, and I think for good reason. They're hard to work in unless you build something around that kind of encounter. They're hard to stumble across, to be around. You have to literally be in the clouds to be around them, you know?
What's very cool is making the magic more a part of their own innate like nature and giving them, legendary actions or something that cast spells along with it. So like, okay, on their turn, they're going in and getting huge attacks off, but like they're also reacting to the environment around. So like the Cloud Giant is going in with their, spear and shield and fighting toe-to-toe with your guys' characters, but then also an NPC is to the side, it turns and it manages to like knock off a lightning bolt in their direction as they're doing something. So yeah, I think making it a part of sort of their flavor, their combat, giving them the legendary action to cast a spell would make it really fun.
Well, and they did have something cool, and, not to spoil too much, but we did have a big encounter with some Cloud Giants. I think it was only a couple of them, but they were very powerful, where there was, the big chamber in the Cloud Giant castle with a moon door, just this big fucking hole in the ground, and, the Cloud Giant leader casts Big B's hand and tries to, grab you and chuck you down there.
Yeah.
We did not have an answer to that. We had multiple spellcasters and no one with Featherfall, so we were really sweating versus that. And not one of us prepared it as we were flying up to the giant castle either. We were like, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I love hearing about this session because I think it was the biggest session as far as Cloud Giants go. We got the most exposure to them, got to fight them a little bit, learn about them, and I wasn't there.
Yeah, you went there for a couple of key
okay.
sessions.
Yeah, it was a really good session, too, for what I hear. I
Yeah.
think a couple of us almost died, but
It's okay. Zach missed the best session of the campaign, so.
I sure did.
but you know what? There were no giants in that, so we can't talk about that one.
Another type of giant that I really like is fire giants. I mean, you can't really go wrong with fire giants. Now, I can't talk about fire giants now without talking about the fact that I've been playing a lot of Elden Ring, and you get to fight a fire giant in Elden Ring, and I was like, this is what they look like. This is exactly what they look like. And so it was very fun for me being like, oh, I am the human going toe-to-toe with the fire giant. This is cool. Which I enjoyed a lot. Now, this was like a tougher encounter in the game. But yeah, it was super interesting, super cool, and now I'm like, okay, I can envision scale for giants in my head a lot better, because they weren't quite that big to me in my head, and then I looked at what a 30-foot person would look like and went, oh, it makes sense.
Yeah, that's incredibly frightening. I mean, I'd say the fire giant in Elden Ring is probably like near storm giant height.
Yeah, definitely.
But absolutely, it's friggin'... And the fact that they were able to pull that off, this isn't an Elden Ring podcast, but I'm just going to gush for a minute, with the scale, because they've done in FromSoft games before, massive creatures, but it always feels cheap, like they have to do something special to it. Not this time. You're running around on your horse. It's chucking fire at you. It's trying to crush you, and it's mobile and running around, and it just feels great to fight that boss.
Oh yeah, it was super fun. I didn't use anything to help me in that encounter, and man, I had a blast.
So I didn't get to see the really cool fire giant. I've heard great things about him. Did he look similar to how I would imagine in like the player's handbook kind of a vibe, or the monster manual?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The darker skin, the orange hair, yeah, exactly what you would think of.
He did have a big face on his chest. I will say that.
Oh,
yeah. It was a two-faced fight. But
I don't think I like that. That's weird.
so,
but it was cool because it was like a bigger face on his chest
so
with like a big. I
really,
think it was like a cyclops eye.
So really enjoyed that. Another thing I like about fire giants is just how organized and militaristic they are. I don't really understand how they're not just taking down places, razing villages and stuff all the time. Which, I mean, the thing is they're supposed to be very technologically advanced, even more so than dwarves. With magic and their like understanding of it. So yeah, that is one thing that bothers me a little bit about them is I feel like fire giants would be taking the place over. Maybe they just can't reproduce fast enough, something like that. I'm not sure.
Well, maybe it's not only that, but the fire giants, in my understanding, are very prideful, right? So
right.
Maybe it's hard to get a bunch of them together, because everyone
That's
thinks
true.
that they're a master craftsman, so they go off and isolate themselves and complete their own work. But it's hard to get a bunch of giants together without, causing a ruckus
Right.
or causing a fuss. And especially fire giants. Like, if fire giants are going to war, everyone, loses.
Speaking of that, let's go on to my favorite variant of the bunch that we get, the fire giant dreadnought. So
God.
cool.
Ugh,
one
they're
of my
nasty. I
one
hate
of
them.
my favorite creatures in any of the monster manuals we've got. And so this is from Volos and is now in Monsters of the Multiverse. It is a fire giant wielding 2 spiked tower shields, and it's the coolest thing that you can come up against. They are, one, incredibly powerful. Like, you need to be a high level party to be taking down a couple of these guys. And literally their whole MO is charge up on you and ram you with that spike shield over and over and over again until you're just, soup on the ground.
And there's nothing you could do against it either. What's their AC set? Like 24?
Yeah, it's incredible. It's insanely high.
Which is crazy because you think, I'm going against a giant. He's going to have a lot of hit points, but I could hit him a whole lot really
Yeah,
hard.
but when he's wearing
No.
gigantic plate armor and holding 2 shields.
You just can't break. I guess you have to. I guess you have to use magic at that point to somehow immobilize them, incapacitate them. Because I can't imagine beating them down by yourself.
Oh no, there's no way. Like, you're fighting a platoon of like 6 of them. Like, you guys eventually, or in a campaign, we had them. You guys go up against, what was it, 6 of them and their leader. No way you would win. Like, I had to take you guys out right there. It was crazy. It was cool. It was fun. And man, I think they're the coolest creatures.
Yeah, I've got a great idea to counter them, though. You just cast heat metal.
Oh wait, they're resistant or immune.
They're
immune to fire. I was like, oh, good, bad idea.
Yeah, no, it's a terribly great idea.
Can you transmute that spell to a different type?
I don't see why not. As a sorcerer, well, it might be like on the first instance of damage, but heat metal does do. I'd have to read the sorcery.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because
Metamagic.
what if you could transmute that to like cold and make their armor so cold it's like dealing frost like cold damage to them.
I mean, if you're spending the point to transmute it without reading the actual wording, I can't imagine why you wouldn't be able to.
It would still, quote unquote, like scald their skin, right?
I think heat metal is a very underused spell as it is. So if it's super effective against the fire giant dreadnought, the one you're gonna see ever playing,
Yeah.
I think it's fine.
I mean, it would make sense too to use heat metal with lightning, and you just like electrify it, and now it's just shocking them repeatedly.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I mean, all of that
Or
works.
acid. Now they're burning. They got to
Yeah.
take it off because it's coated in acid.
I would let you do it.
I think it'd be cool. It makes me think of, we were in a big boss fight with a number of fire giants in Storm Kings, without giving anything away. And to get one of the final blows, my character Eknon Greylock, rogue with a lightning sword, he cast lightning bolt out of his sword, and it bounced off all the different shields of the giants on the battlefield, slammed into the back of the big boss, taking him down to the ground. It was so
That
cool.
was very cool. I forgot about that.
I felt really cool after it.
Yeah, right before Morwen stabbed him in the knee, and then he died, I think.
Yeah, you got the end kill right in the knee.
Yeah.
One of Morwen's greatest moments.
All right, boys. Well, we've talked a lot about giants today. Anything else you guys want to bring up?
Yes, because there is a hidden 7th giant that I haven't told you about up until this point as a last-minute reveal.
Oh boy.
You boys ever heard the tales of the fog giant?
No.
So, in earlier editions of D&D, the first edition, there was a fog giant, and it was a few years ago at this point, but like as a charity thing, Wizards released an official supplement. It's called Mordenkainen's Fiendish Folio, and it brought back a bunch of old monsters and gave them stat blocks for 5th edition. The fog giant is like a cloud giant. I think they're around the same stature and power as a cloud giant. CR 11, I believe. But they've got their whole thing is they can create like clouds of fog, and then they can see through them. So they fully obscure the whole area around themselves, and then just like come up on you. They like to live in swamps and shit. Their one extra feature that they get versus other giants is they get like a rallying cry where they basically yell out just something so horrifying to their subordinates that they all make an attack at once. So like you imagine a fog giant with like, just a horde of orcs. Doesn't matter if your characters are 10th level, they're getting hit by 24 attacks all in one turn. And then the then the orcs get to make their attack again, on their actual turn.
That is so cool. I love like this leader fog giant. Maybe it's just like maybe thinking they're individuals, like a leader fog giant with all of these subordinates who's just extremely intelligent. Maybe it's a cloud giant who came down to the surface and started just becoming one with nature, like a druid. And now it's a fog giant, and they've taken over this city of wood elves or orcs, or like you were saying. That's a very cool idea. I love it.
Yep. I don't know their lore. I don't know how they fit in. I don't think they really do with current 5th edition stuff, but that's a little cheat code from me to you. Look up Fog Giant 5e. You'll find it.
Oh, and that's official 5e?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Okay. I kind of want to check it out. It's one of my favorite personal monsters in all of D&D. I love hags. I've told you guys this before. I love the idea that you roll up on a swamp to take out a hag, and she's got a fog giant or
As
two.
her like bodyguard.
Yep.
I love
Cloud
that.
up the swamp so they can't see. All you hear is the cackling of the night hag in the distance. Oh, that'd be cool.
If we want to make this like a high level encounter, just a bunch of, or like a number of Oni also under their control, and like you just see like their eyes and their grins through the fog as they come up on you. That's an awesome horror.
I'm also
encounter.
thinking of a bunch of Nothics as like the really low level creatures, like or like kind of just sitting in the fog as well with their big eyes. Oh, that's cool.
There's so much opportunity, man.
The hag idea that got me. I like that.
Yeah, I got chills.
I'm gonna throw one more thing in about these giants. The reason I like the giants, and we touched on it just a tad bit about how the hill giants can work with all the other giants, whether they're they're slaves or they're being utilized or manipulated, right? I like that they all work together so well. The stone giants could be miners for the fire giants. The fog giants could be working with the cloud giants to create more landmass and clouds.
More clouds.
Like they just you could take
The
any
world
given giant.
needs more clouds, Drew.
More clouds.
Churn them out.
The cloud apocalypse. I actually love that for a one-off.
Oh man, I just thought of what if the fire giants were just like using more fire to make more smoke to make clouds. They make cloud machines for the cloud giants. That's hilarious.
But it's true though. You could take any of the giants, and in some way they fit with other creatures, with other beings, with other groups of people. They just enhance the situation as a whole, or they escalate it, make things crazy. That's why I like them.
That's
They're good with
very
everybody.
fun. And with that, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Table Talk Friday. If you would like for more from me, Drew, Zach, the boys, head on over to your podcast service of choice. Listen to all of our episodes in a row from the beginning. The beginning ones don't sound as good, but they're still a lot of fun to listen to. You can write into the show at tabletalkfriday@gmail.com. Send us your questions, comments, concerns. Talk about your favorite giants, any characters you've played. If you've run Storm Kings or played in Storm Kings, tell us your stories about it. And you can find us on social media at Table Talk Friday. You can find us on TikTok at Table Talk Friday and Twitter at Table Talk Friday, where I put out tweets every single week about our new episodes. And with that, I need a giant to take me out.
Fee, fi, fo, fum. I don't know where this bit is going, and I think it was pretty dumb.
Thank you for listening to Table Talk Friday, a D&D podcast. For more fun conversations like this, follow the boys on whatever podcast service you prefer, and come back every Friday for another upload. And if you have your own inquiries, you can find them at tabletalkfriday@gmail.com. Thank you.